Hello, everyone. Wishing you a very good evening, a Friday evening, and we are here for the book launch of Why Blend In When You Can Stand Out. I am Mitch Sudani, and I'm very happy and excited to have with me the co-authors of the book, Shraddhanjali Rao and Brigu Joshi. And along with them, I have Chris Shankar, who will be the host for today's evening. Shraddha. Shraddhanjali Rao is the co-founder of NHRD's Inclusion Lab and Vice President and Head HR at SAP in India. Under her leadership, SAP Labs India was ranked number one in India's best companies to work for study in 2018 and 19 by Great Place to Work Institute. Shraddha, as she loved to be called, has been awarded as the Exceptional Woman for Excellence 2017 by Women Economic Forum and is among top 20 most voted HR role models in India 2018. She's a passionate about future of work, leadership, transformational change, diversity and inclusion, and now a co-author of this book. I welcome you, Shraddha.
Thank you so much, Mish. Pleasure being here.
Okay. And our second person on the list, a co-author, Brigu Joshi, is also the co-founder of NHRDN's Inclusion Lab and Director HR at SAP in India. He has held a variety of leadership positions with organizations such as HSBC, KPMG Management Consulting, and Make My Trip. Brigu has been identified among top 16 young HR leaders in India by People Matters and DDI. Also, he has been recognized as India's 40 under 40 in HR by Zombie. He's a well-published author on subjects such as Agile in HR, Digital in HR, post-merger people integration, diversity and inclusion, etc. Welcome, Brigu. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
So,
Thanks, Mish.
excited for the first book launch, Shraddha and Brigu?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, waiting to hear the insights and a lot of research that you guys have done over this book. Last 10 months, I know that a lot of work has gone inside. But before that, let me get our host for the evening, Chris Shankar. Chris is an executive vice president and the group head HR at Infosys. He has over 30 years of experience and has led several global HR functions in organizations like Bharti Airtel, Unilever, Hindustan Unilever. And before that, prior to this, he was head HR for South Asia at Philips. He's an avid reader, a marathoner, runs, a football enthusiast. So, Chris, welcome you for this evening.
Great. It's a pleasure to be here amongst the big shots, the luminaries.
Yes.
Shraddha and Brigu and Mitch, of course. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Krish. Over to you. I'm here to help you out. And viewers, please feel free to type in your questions in the comment box and we'll be happy to take that.
Great. Thank you, Mitch. Thanks a lot. I think, friends, good evening and welcome to this this book launch of Why Blend In When You Can Stand Out. It's a nice title, and I think we got to get to understand a little bit about this book as we go in the next couple of minutes. Yeah, I'll get them. But if you look at what's been happening in corporate India over the last 30 years, I started working in '84, so it's almost 36 years. You can see that India has made huge strides on inclusion. Yeah, I mean the number of women working, the differences in generations that are working in organizations, the differences in educational background or socioeconomic background. I think all of that has kind of has skyrocketed over the last 30 years. We've done quite a lot as India Inc. But there's still lots to do, yeah. And there are lots of newer areas that are coming up. There are lots of newer things that are emerging as issues. And I think it's an area that's becoming very important to really all of us here. So I think that's quite interesting because this is at this time that Shraddha and Brigu have put together this whole book on, why blend in when you can stand out. It's all about inclusion. And I think NHRD is also very happy to kind of partner with them and see how we can take this for the larger benefit of everybody. So let's just get to know a little bit about what they are doing, etc. Let me just start with this, Shraddha. Tell me what inspired you to kind of write this book, and tell me, who do you think can benefit from this book?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Krish, for being the host for us. It's a special moment for Brigu and me. And we're so happy to share this with you because you've been an integral part of this journey with us over the last, I think, Inclusion Lab journey of about 18 months, if I can say so. And it's been a ride. It's been a ride as a curious learner. To start with, Brigu and I are very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and both of us have been curious learners as well as practitioners in this space for over a decade. We started when we had to Google the term diversity and inclusion. I'm very glad we have gone away from those times. And when I look back, I'm both happy and sad. Happy because I see a lot of intentionality in organizations and leadership today on wanting to move the needle of diversity and inclusion. But sad at the same time because there is still so much struggle out there on lack of, what are the best practices? What could I do? So intentions are there, but there's not a clear roadmap. Um, I come from a world where technology is changing everything that is touching our lives, right? And we have such a clear digital transformation roadmaps. A cultural transformation roadmap is as important. And for me, I think that was really important to start working on that and providing the community something that we could build on. So, just looking back, if I remember, we wanted to change the way diversity and inclusion is consumed at an organization level and is actioned at an organization level. A lot has been spoken about, but I think the time to do is now, here and now, and it couldn't be a better time. So when Brigu and I started this journey, and it goes back, Krish, if you remember, to your call to us saying, there's something about diversity we need to fix. It started with that, and what then went on, and a late night evening conversation between Brigu and me sowed the seeds of the first inclusion lab in this country. And we're so happy that we partnered with NHRD for it because you gave us a platform to nurture it. And for those who don't know, Inclusion Lab is a body that facilitates cutting edge research, experimentation, and dialogue in the area of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belongingness. And this book is one of the many things that we have under the scope of Inclusion Lab. And it's been such a privilege to partner. It's just not knowledge of Brigu and me, but all the best companies in the industry across the fraternity that have gone out there and shared what they do with pride and even the failures that they've had with us for us to put together this book. Um, like you asked me, who is this book for? So when we started this, what was our objective? Our objective was threefold: was to create awareness, sensitivity, and competence in the subject matter. And that could be for CXOs who are really interested, could be business leaders, could be CHROs, could be HR practitioners, or even DNI practitioners, but for something in their hand that they could really action on. Not to forget, it is also for students who want to build the knowledge on the subject. And in that sense, that was the journey for us, Krish.
Wow, excellent. No, I think it's a very, very important thing because I think from what I can understand is here you've taken all the best practices and you're giving a roadmap for us, for any company to really start on this inclusion journey. Yeah, so that's fantastic. So, Brigu, tell me. I mean, when I read the title, that's very interesting. Yeah. So, how did you come up with it with this, and what's behind this title?
Yeah. So, Krish, thanks for that question. And, as Shraddha also mentioned, so this book is one of our attempts to make corporate India a more inclusive place to work. And, our vision of an inclusive organization is the one in which employees are allowed to be themselves. So they are allowed to stand out and they have no pressure to blend in ways they don't agree with. This title, Why Blend In When You Can Stand Out, captures the essence of this thought. And Krish, also you would have noticed that the title of this book is written as a question. So we fully understand that it's not easy for employees to stand out and resist the temptation of blending in. In fact, in this book, we have presented the pros and cons of standing out and blending in, both for the employees and the organization. And lastly, Krish, this book is not just a society. And therefore, we wanted to keep the title of this book in a way such that subsequently it can be converted into a campaign. And I'm very happy to share with everyone that we have partnered with the students of Tata Institute of Social Sciences to launch a campaign called hashtag I Stand Out. And you will hear more about it shortly. So it will be used to put across our message of making corporate India a more inclusive place to work.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, that's a great idea. I think it's time to really get this at the top of the list for many people. Yeah, so that's a fabulous idea. So let's understand this a little better now. Shraddha, tell me. I mean, in your experience, now that you've done a lot of research for this, you've met people, you've put together all the best practices. What do you think is the single most important factor for building a inclusive workforce?
So, Krish, I should be paid every time I'm asked this question. A lot of people ask, right? It doesn't matter if there's a CEO sitting in front of, they're like, just tell us the one thing that I need to do this to get this right, right? What is heartwarming to see is the intent that they want to do it. But it is what I'll share with you is a little bit of a sneak peek. Now, for the audience today, it may or may not match your perspective, but we'll share what we've learned with our experience. To start with, it is not, and I am an HR practitioner, but it is not the people practices and policies that you put in place. It is not how you measure diversity and inclusion in your organization. It is not even the technology that you have so lovingly fought with the CFO in investment and your CIO to get done. If there is one, and if I have to peel the onion, it is the leadership buy-in, the unwavering support and commitment from the leadership to create an inclusive workplace. And let me explain to you what this is. It is not a cognitive conversation. Let me call that out. It's not a cognitive conversation about an ROI of diversity and inclusion. We have moved away from it, ladies and gentlemen, and it is time that we do move away from it. What we have seen where in the organizations that have been most successful in creating an inclusive workplace, it is the leaders buy-in that is originating from a personal passionate experience of inclusion. And what do I mean by that? And I'll also share with you what would we ask leaders to do and what should we do as organizations to facilitate that. If I look at it, we've been talking about DNI, we've been making our leaders think about DNI. Now we need to make them feel about DNI. And that is the difference. So let me give you an example. When you go on this DNI transformation journey, your values will be challenged. And not just as leaders, but across the entire organization. Your beliefs will be pushed to the cornermost limits. You will fail. I can guarantee you this. You will fail. But you will also learn things you never thought you would have learned. And eventually, you will become a better human being. For diversity and inclusion to truly work, of course, you require policies, programs, technology, and measurement mechanisms. But what is most important is at the point where the decision is critical, the person sitting on that chair is deciding in the long run. And that's diversity and inclusion. So, what are my 2 cents for the leaders and for the organization? One, as organizations, as HR, fraternity, as CHROs, if you want to build, you need to experience, the leaders have to experience inclusion. And I'll give you a personal example here. 5 years ago, we selected 25 leaders, next gen leaders to go for a leadership program. And as a part of it, we did social sabbatical in Assam. Okay. Personal trivia, I was born in Assam, but I don't remember anything about it anymore. So when I went back 5 years, what that 2 years of work, 2 weeks of working in an NGO in the northeastern corners of this country taught us, I think years and decades of prestigious, institutional training cannot. It just brought us down. Till date, we realize how small our problems are, how significant the challenges of society are. And this is where you move out of your AC rooms and your offices and your comfortable houses to see how privileged you are and what the society outside looks like and how you can contribute. That one experience, Krish, has personally touched me so much that it will always make me think that way. So I'm asking and I'm requesting organizations, as you're enabling your leaders, don't just talk about what or to think about diversity rationally. Ask them to experience it. Send them to places they have never been. Ask them to do things they've never been. Uh, that's my 2 cents out there. And for leaders, I think the one ask is, and we are all humans, we are all have biases, is to pause. before you make a conversation or a decision, pause just to see if you have an inherent bias. Anything that you want to add, Brigu, here?
No, absolutely. So I think you articulated it pretty well, Shraddha. And at a personal level, it resonates pretty well with me. So one technique which has helped me personally to become more conscious of my own actions is my habit of taking a pause. So exactly, what you mentioned. Taking a pause before I have a urge to say something or react to a nasty mail in that sense. I have written a few lines to remind myself the importance of taking a pause. And Krish, if you allow, I would like to share them with our viewers.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that'll be great. Go ahead.
Here it goes. Pause is the difference between right and wrong. Pause is the difference between react and respond. Pause is the difference between weak and strong. And pause is the difference between exclude and belong. Hashtag feed the pause. So I put this in front of my workstation.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice. Yes. Excellent. No, thanks, Shraddha. I think you're right. I think leaders' personal kind of commitment, but also that commitment is always fueled by some experience. So I think experience is important for us to truly have that inclusive mindset. So, Brigu, I think you guys did a lot of research, right, to come to this. I think we see it as a compendium of lots of actions that people can do. So, tell me, what was your experience of doing the research? How did you go about it? What literary pilgrimages did you go to, and tapas that you did to get all of this?
Sure, Krish. So, we went through many interesting experiences while doing this research on the book. In fact, many of these experiences helped us to understand the true state of DNA in the world today. Krish, if I were to share with you certain examples, so last year we came across this website called rentaminority.com. So they provide diversity on demand services to large organizations, and they claim to have diversity for every occasion, for corporate brochures, for award shows, for conference panels, so on and so forth. So they say that they're like Uber of diversity. So on the supply and demand side, companies can hire them for specific purposes. And also, if you open their website on the home page, you'll find a smiling Asian woman, you'll find an intellectual black guy, and many more candidates to choose from. And if you are lucky, you can get triple diversity in the price of one. A woman who's gay and who's 50 years of age, a woman who's gay and who's 50 years of age. And ask our viewers, is rent a minority a joke or is it a serious business? So you can just type in your responses in the chat window and we can take a pause of around 15-20 seconds here.
Wow.
Got some responses, or how is it?
Yeah. So some say it's a serious business, some say they are appalled at this, and some say it's a joke. Yes. So definitely you should be appalled at it. In fact, I was myself very appalled at it, when I first opened this website. So according to Arva Mehdavi, who's the creator of this website, it's a joke. But unfortunately, it was received as a serious business. So, within few months of launching this website, more than 1,000 diversity candidates registered with it. And she started getting serious business inquiries from some of the large organizations across countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, sadly, this is the state of DNI we live in. But let's not get disheartened. So, this is one side of the spectrum. On another side of the spectrum, we research some of the most forward looking organizations which are doing some cutting edge work in this area. We closely studied their best practices, which they use to integrate diversity with each stage of the employee life cycle, integrate inclusion with the culture and with the business value chain. So, based on this primary research and also based on the secondary research, we have created something called as Next Gen DNI Maturity Model. In simple words, it is nothing but a repository of 500 best practices in the area of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belongingness. And as the name suggests, it's used to assess the majority of organizations in these areas. And this model is being tested with some of the large organizations across sectors in India. So in this book, you will find a lot of details on this model. You'll find more than 500 unique best practices that can encourage diversity, inclusion, equity, and belongingness. But most importantly, you'll find some specific action items that you can pick to make your organization more diverse and inclusive.
Oh, that's nice. No, I think it's a fabulous idea. And also, I think for those who are watching, we in NHRD, we have now this inclusion lab. We're taking all the frameworks and all the concepts that are there that both Shraddha and Brigu work. And if you want to really test your organization yourself, you want to really do it, NHRD is happy to really help you with that. Great, Shraddha, over to you. Just look at it. I mean, nowadays we have many generations working together. Yeah, I mean, whatever, maybe 4 or 5 generations of people working together. So, what do you see are the challenges? What kind of challenges come in this multi-generational diversity that we all are kind of part of nowadays?
Lovely question. Again, very, very well spoken about. We have 5 generations together, and like as you can imagine, in a large family, it is not easy. It is not easy in corporate houses anymore as well. I think there are 2 elements that I like to bring to focus for people to reflect a little bit upon. The first one is managing negative stereotypes of different generations. I think that's one element to focus about. And the second is managing different life stages and career stage expectations. Now, let me start with the first one. I'm very happy to see that a lot of organizations are making, there's a whole lot of conversation about personalized experiences. How can we understand what is the need of every specific generation? Try to do policies, processes, benefits for those generations. That's a great effort, a great first step. But it will only take you that far because at the underlying current, there is very strong negative stereotypes. And let me call them out, right? We've heard about this so much. Millennials are spoken about, and constantly is the conversation of instant gratification or limited attention spans or lack of loyalty to organizations. Now, this is something that is taking deep roots in our society, in our organizations, and is counterproductive to a very, very large extent. So I think one, we need to look at it. Now, what is it that we can do? There is, of course, difference in style and preferences. Let me be very honest with you. We asked our children and we trained our children to ask questions in a classroom, put their hand up. So they grew up asking questions. When they come into offices and do exactly the same thing, we know that leads to challenges in a leadership style expectation perspective. So I think the conversation now has to move away from negative stereotypes to saying if that is the characteristic, and don't stereotype it, but what is it and how can you bring the two together? Bring a win-win situation. Now I'll give you an example here, Krish. Um, a lot of organizations have gone ahead and done reverse mentoring. Now, classically, a superb example. The first time it's really, really tough. There are bitter experiences as well, but it's a great step because you bring people together. Now, I'm asking you to go one step further and think when you're designing such an opportunity, ensure there's a win win. And I'll give you an example. What we did is we paired a group of millennials with the most senior leaders in the company. But we were very clear that what was the objective? The millennials will teach the leaders social media. And you should have seen the experiences. Of course, digital natives knew Instagram or lived on this, right? And that was not a preferred, platform for senior leaders. So there was a conflict at the beginning. But what happened in the process of mentorship, which was 6 months, was honest mutual respect. Leaders got to hear critical, honest feedback from the ground. The millennials got to see and understand how could somebody spend 2 decades with an organization. In their mind, that was not even a construct, an appreciated construct. So you try to bring the two together. And what we have to do is we have to get into a dialogue mode. I think talking about it and trying to solve it within the HR frame is not your right answer. You need to take this dialogue back into the teams, back into the workforce. The second one, which is around managing life stage expectations. And I want to break a myth here. And I'm not going to do it out of our research. We're going to leverage. Great Places to Work did a study. And it was found that 4 out of 5 dimensions that people look for across different generations are the same. Their pride of work. Second is career opportunities. Third is a fair performance evaluation. And fourth is a sense of belonging. It is the same for Gen X, Gen Y, Millennials, and Gen Z. So, in the process of us as organizations customizing, are we stereotyping too much? I would want us to take a pause and decide for us what really matters. And the small 2 cents there is ask them. They will tell you what they want and they'll be very open about it. So, if you can build an inclusive culture by asking our people, that will take us a long way.
Great. Guys, those you're watching, I think it's good time. Go ahead and buy this book. Tell others to buy this book. And if you've not already bought it, yeah. So I think it's going to be a treasure trove of lots of great ideas and for you to really take it forward. So let's move here, Shraddha. I mean, both of you are from the tech industry. Yeah, Brigu, tell me. I mean, how does inclusion work in the tech industry? I mean, if you look at what are some of the different challenges that you think tech industry has?
Yeah, thanks, Krish, for that question. In fact, this is also one of my passion areas. Uh, so, what I've found out is that there are three issues in managing gender diversity at the workplace. And very interestingly, none of these issues is counterintuitive. So, at certain level, we are aware of these issues. So, first is the limited availability of qualified women at the entry level. And let me share with you certain interesting data points to substantiate my point. In the last census, 47% girls passed out from 12th standard. But unfortunately, only 25% opted for engineering and technology related careers. One more data point. Of all the students who wrote IT entrance exams last year, only 29% were girls. So, the point which I'm trying to put across here is that availability of qualified women talent at the entry level continues to be a challenge. Second issue is the vertical asymmetry in the distribution of women across levels. And according to NASA Indian tech industry, with 51% at the junior level, 25% at the mid level, and 1% at the C-suite level. So clearly, this talent pipeline is leaky at multiple points. Third issue is horizontal asymmetry in the distribution of women across functions. And this is something new which I personally discovered 1.5 years. So unfortunately, percentage of women in core functions is significantly less as compared to non-core functions. Now, just extended the same example. So out of these 34% women who work in the tech industry, so only 26% work in the engineering roles, and out of which only 11% work in core development. So while one can say that at the aggregate level, representation of women in the tech sector is reasonable, but frankly, if you ask me and if you double click, you'll find that most women still are working in the peripheral roles. And they are doing the kind of work which we like to call as office housework. It's a peripheral sort of work. And what we have seen is that unfortunately, this phenomena is not limited to tech sector, but it's also prevalent in other sectors like financial sector, management consulting, legal, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. You're right. I think we've got to really dig deeper and make it much more, what I would call is remove the asymmetry, as you call it. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. I'm just.
If I could add, I think the ask, Krish, is really for organizations to go back. Everybody represents women in workforce numbers. We get very happy about it when we move the needle. pull it down to levels into which organizations, and let's talk about within HR. Look at the proportion of women in HR versus men in HR. Diversity is everywhere and it needs to be an equal pace. It can't be aggregated and shown very well. So I think it's time we peel those covers and ask those questions. And that would be an ask to everybody on the call today to go back and think of diversity one level lower, not just at the higher level, not just hire a lot of testers, testing profiles as women, or saying there are no women in sales. Yes, there are challenges, and women probably don't opt them in mid career. But then we have to go back and fix that problem rather than saying I'd rather take just at the entry level, and then we'll be fine overall from a number point of view. I think it's time to peel the mask.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair point. Good. Now, I'm just wondering if there are any questions that are there from any of the listeners, any of the people who are viewers and others. I mean, if you guys have any questions, anything you want to ask, do so, put it on the chat, and maybe we can really take some of your thoughts also. And maybe Mitch, will you let me know if we get some questions? So while we're getting that, maybe we can go to one more question now till we get some more from all the viewers. Tell me, Shraddha and Brigu, I mean, what are some of the new trends that you see in this whole D&I or DEI or DEIT or whatever you want to call it now?
The three that I can think of, Krish, the first one, I think it's really cool, and I'm very proud and glad to see that happening. I think we've scratched the surface around diversity. We've spoken a bit about it. We're figuring our way through inclusion. But what's really going to happen in the next few years, and I hope I'm really talking about a few years, is the whole concept of equity and belongingness. What 2020 did that to us, right? We were distributed, but how do you create a culture of feeling that you belong together in a distributed setup? It's gonna accelerate, and we will need to know how to do this. Last year, when I wrote a note to my team members at the end of the year, I said we shared, our homes and probably our pressure cooker whistles, which otherwise would never have been the case, right? We got an insight into each other's lives, forced or not forced, and we choose to do something with that? That's the question. So I think one big one will be around equity and belongingness. And mind you, equity is not equality. It's equality tends to be about serving a non-vegetarian meal to everybody, making them feel good, although they are vegetarians in the audience, right? So I think the concept of equity will take prominence. The concept of belonging, and I really like to quote this: if the whole world is going down the technology way, everything that can be automated will be automated. What will truly be left is the human interaction. And that has to be truly fostered. So that's a big one. Belonging is going to come through. The second one, I think, is intersectionality of diversity. For the purpose of analysis for this book, we have looked at four strands: gender, generation, PWD, and LGBTQI+. But there are a lot more strands of diversity, even in India. And we didn't do it because we didn't have data for research. It's not information that's recorded in organization system for us to make analytical sense out of. But the possibility of intersectionality just in these four elements is going to take a prominence. And I'll give you an example. None of us just tick one box. We tick many boxes. And we need to be respected and understood for the many boxes that we tick. To do that is really, really tough. It's not an easy task. And it will impact organizations' culture, but that is where you take the game to the next level. I'll give you, again, a personal example. And this is a little bit from my childhood. So I remember this one moment, which I can tell you. So if you've studied in army schools or KVs, you would remember a period called SUPW. I don't even know the full form of it, but there used to be something that they used to make us do.
Socially useful and productive work.
There you go. So clearly, you were very active during that time. It used to be a course that I used to somehow bunk, or I was not really fond of, right? And I studied in a co-ed education, and we always had this class together. Somehow in eighth or ninth, whoever decided that the class would be split in two sets. The girls will go and learn how to sew and paint, and the boys will be sent to carpentry and electrician. Okay, and I remember coming the first class of that year, and I was just stunned. I made a whole hue and cry. I was the rebel in the room, and I said, "No, I will not do this." And obviously the teacher got fed up with me, and she said, "Fine, go." So I went with the boys to the electrician department. I can tell you that I was no good there as well, and I kind of came back here. But just the fact that you did not give me a choice, the fact that you stereotype me based on a category is still something that has stayed with me 20 years later. What I'm trying to tell you is intersectionality will become much more prevalent and an ask for organization. And we need to be better prepared for that. The last one that I want to call out, and it's where organizations start playing. I mean, we're talking about boundaryless organizations, gig workforce. I think, again, we need to start thinking outside of the organization into the ecosystem. Do you have diversity and inclusion guidelines for your vendors? There are some organizations, I'm very proud to say, are doing this very actively. If you don't have an X number of women or an X generational representation, then they don't sign contracts. But those are important decisions because we need to move society at a much faster pace than what it is bringing. So these three are the trends that I see coming that we will need to get our arms around fairly soon.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. That's interesting. Great. So I think we've got some questions. Yeah. So we've got now Avinash, and you can see the question there, Brigu and Shraddha. I think the question all about technology. How can it play a role of creating a more inclusive organization? Any thoughts on it?
Sure. So I can pick that question. Um, so, Krish, I'm a strong believer that technology can play a very instrumental role in making organizations inclusive. But let me flip inclusion and say that exclusion is the result of human bias at play, and technology can interrupt those biases when used intelligently. And let me share with you a couple of use cases to just put across my point. Research says that more than 40% of organizations' communication happens on emails and chat messengers. Now, technology powered by NLP and ML can be integrated with platforms such as Outlook and Slack to audit written communication for human biases. So, just imagine a scenario where you are typing a mail and a bias alert pops up. Let me share with you one more use case. Technology can also be used to provide behavior insights to employees, but more importantly, managers. Now, imagine a scenario in which for example, I'm a people manager and there are 5 male reportees and 5 female reportees, which I have. So, just imagine me getting those insights at the end of every month. Now, such as Brigu, based on your calendar, you have spent 30% more time with your male reportees. You have spent 40% more time to reply to emails from your female reportees as compared to male reportees, right? So just imagine me getting those insights at the end of every month. Now, I as a manager, I'm doing all this unconsciously, but technology can help me to be myself more aware, make me aware of whatever I'm doing unconsciously. So, in fact, in the book we have mentioned, so I've shared with you 2 use cases. So, in the book, we have mentioned more than 80 such use cases of technology. And in fact, we have tried to map those use cases with different types of technologies: AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, AR, VR, so on and so forth. So, just
Oh,
hoping that it will be an interesting read.
wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I think there's lots that's happening there. Yeah. Great. I think I've seen one more question here. I think this is all about when you spoke of technology, there's other questions saying, what are the risks involved in use of technology in building an inclusive organization? Because at the end, technology is like, it can cut both ways. So it's a nice question, Himani. So what are some of the thoughts you guys have on it?
Maybe I can start and Brigu can
Yeah,
add. I mean, like
sure.
like everything else in life, it is a two-edged sword, right? I think we also heard it. We also saw organizations using technology, which was primarily using a trend analysis and shortlisting your candidates. So it basically went back in the system and said, who are your most successful people? Of course, the percentage of men in certain roles was higher. So it started removing women from the shortlist itself. So we've seen this happen. This has actually happened, and they pulled that entire technology back out and went back to your regular recruiting process. There's a lot of such business cases that are out there as well, and we need to be cognizant how to use it. I think adding one more to Brigu, for example, compensation, pay equity is one of the most important topics, heavily spoken about. The question is not at the during the year, it has to be at the time of the reward. So at the time when the manager is planning the compensation, let's say somebody's gone on maternity leave, and by law they are allowed to go for that period and come back. You have to evaluate them for the year minus that period. But just psychologically, when you compare and you're a manager, you're human, you will invariably believe somebody else has done better. If the system can propagate and tell you that as a proportion of the investment made by this person, so on so, you are giving them a lesser hike. Imagine at the time of decision making, that will change behavior. So you can use technology both ways, but you'll also have to build sensitization to managers on how to consume it, right? It shouldn't become a personal opinion issue and then I feel challenged. So I think it's about awareness and ensuring technology is hand in hand on that one.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you. Great. We've got a couple of more questions coming. So
Absolutely,
let me
Shraddha.
see
So,
if we
I
have
was just
time to
thinking
take
in my
one more.
own mind. Uh, uh,
Yeah,
I
Burjesh,
just
sorry.
wanted to add a
Go
couple
ahead.
of points to what Shraddha mentioned. Uh, and- okay, okay. So, so I was reading some time back that technology, especially the one powered by machine learning, can also be biased at times. And so most of us know that a lot of data is required to train machines to run a particular algorithm. Now, more often than not, this data is created by humans and is exposed to human biases. And of course, biased data leads to biased outcomes. So many of you might already know when the world's first facial recognition engine was made, it was not able to differentiate the face of a chimpanzee with the face of a black woman. Why? Because data on certain races was inadequately fed to the engine. So, as Shraddha rightly said, so we need to be very mindful while using technology to solve for intrusion.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's exactly right. Great. Couple of more questions. So we've got this from Adiba, which and she's asking this question about how can companies ensure the DIEB across various employee life cycles?
So what we've done for you, Adiba, and that's you're pretty much picking up the book as well. So what we've done is we've looked at diversity across the entire 10 employee life cycle stages, right? Starting from candidate attraction, selection, attraction, selection, onboarding, performance management, development, rewarding, separation, including infrastructure and governance. We've really looked at all those elements and tried to imbibe, step by step, both in process, policy, technology, as well as leadership buy-in. So what you get from in the book is very, very actionable insights for both the HR organization, business leaders, as well as a regular employee of what you could do to influence the employee life cycle positively. So that's something that we've really built it in a consumable fashion.
Great. Thanks. One more question, and this is very interesting. Now we've got all this gig economy coming up, right? And here's this nice question from Aman, which says, if you look at the gig economy, this impact of work from home, especially on people with disabilities. Um, how do you see that, and what are some of the things that we can do for that?
Riku, do you want to start, and then I can add?
Yeah, sure. So, it's a very contemporary topic, and a lot of people reach out to us, to understand how will gig economy and the current context of COVID remote working impact diversity and inclusion. So, personally speaking, I'm optimistic about it. So, we are learning ways to work remotely, right? And remote working, in case of certain employee segments within the organization, is beneficial for them. So, for example, Aman, in the example mentioned, what is the impact on people with disability? So, it's a very classic case in point. So, obviously, it depends on the kind of disability, but if your disability is related to motion, and if you are working from home, now that makes the world flat for everyone. So, everyone is working from home, right? So, you have access to the same resources which everyone else would have. So in that sense, gig economy, COVID times, these some of the factors have essentially my sense is this will accelerate diversity and inclusion and its consumption within the organization. And organization will truly understand the importance of diversity and inclusion because sometimes just sitting across the table, it's easy to make someone feel included Now, what will happen if the entire team of 100 people is distributed all across the world, different time zones, working from home, right? The interactions have reduced. Now, in this new normal, how can you ensure that people still feel included? Not only included, how do they still feel belonged? These are some of the things, interesting challenges that we need to address.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Brigu. I think, so folks, listen, there are lots there. I think there are lots in this book. I think both Shraddha and Brigu have really worked hard, put a lot of stuff together. While we'll take more questions, I think before that, we got to see the book, right? We got to kind of do an unveiling of the book. So let's do that. Yeah. So here's the copy that I have. I hope you guys have your own copies or whatever it is.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so let's do the unveiling of this. Wow, great. That's it. I think we got to do a bit of
Round of applause.
round of applause. Excellent. So I think I think this is again, as I said, you know, there are two parts. I mean, while we're all passionate, I think we're all passionate about the subject, and I think how we can make a difference using this. Number two is that I think this is really a very handy book. It's something which is put in a more practical way. Lots of ideas, lots of things that we can take and do it. And I think it's something that will make many of us as evangelists and many of us as facilitators of making more inclusive organizations. Yeah. So look forward to this. Great. Let's see if there are more questions. Um, Yeah, Harshal's got a question. Yeah, how much of it can we execute at the ground level? Maybe we can just take one or two more questions before we end. So I think this is ideal. But Shraddha, what do you think? How do you think you can execute at the ground level?
You can, and we've tried. And Harshal, brilliant question, because I think this is the toughest one. Everybody is passionate, everybody's heart is in it, but nobody knows how to get the elephant moving, right? And truly, honestly speaking, this is you have to make the elephant dance for people to really feel the value of it. So, I think what we've really got down is actionables. So, in the book, we have tried to cover saying if you're an HR practitioner or a TA professional, or just an employee in a particular team and you want to make your team inclusive, you're a first line manager, what can you do? Like I said, we've dedicated chapters in the book to the personas as well. That helps you then consume it that way. But we've really also drilled it down to very, very small personal behavior things as well. I think Bhrigu highlighted one, right? Pause. I'll share one which changed me. I'll give you an example with the LGBT community. We've been trying to engage and we've been trying to move the needle out there, but we don't have an understanding, and it is difficult to have because the critical mass of that population is not out in the open as much as we would like it to be. So what did we do about it? And again, a personal example, last year I spent some time just talking one on one to people from transgender communities, and it was a very it was not it was just for my knowledge. It was about figuring out how their experience has been, what did they have to go through, what was the challenge looking like, and then you get a very different context of what the problem is. So what we have tried to do in the book, Harshal, is to really go down to every possible persona and give you actionable things that you can carry forward. But it doesn't matter what your persona is. If you can make that one additional effort to expose yourself to somebody who's very different than you and just listen. It could be one evening of the same 12 by 14 screen conversation, which is what I did, but it changes you. Delve over it, let it run in your head, and it will create better questions for you to change your behavior. I think that is at the core of what we want to change.
Yeah, just two
Excellent.
cents from
Thanks.
my
Thanks,
side.
Shraddha.
So, Harshil, I think it's a fantastic question. And, this book fundamentally is written keeping in mind the D&I professional, HR leaders, and business leaders who genuinely want to make an impact in their respective organizations. Chapter 4 in this book is only dedicated to implementation. and looking at entire diversity inclusion from the lens of practitioners, the lens of HR leaders and business leaders. So I think that will also help answer many of your questions.
Great. Thank you, Shraddha and Brigu. Uh, let's go to the next question. I think maybe you guys have partly answered it. It's again all about uh, gig working. Yeah, I think you've answered it part. But tell me, I mean, in this age of work from home, how is it, and how a large company like SAP adapting to it?
uh, Interesting times for everybody. Tech companies are at the privilege of being able to work from home, let me put it this way. And so, in that sense, we've said at least till half of this year, please recommended work from home. But I think we are also seeing a lot of people put their hand up and saying we want to come back to office, right? We have beautiful campuses, we have great facilities, but most importantly, you miss human interaction. You miss wanting to stand in front of a a coffee corner or a water cooler conversation. So we will start opening our offices for sure, in a very limited capacity with social distancing and the norms and so on and so forth. But the idea and a belief that I have that I want to take back is COVID gave us an opportunity to redesign how we would like the future of work, workforce, and workplace to be. We shouldn't go back to where we started. We probably have an opportunity to redesign it for a better future, and that's what the aim will be. And probably not just for SAP, but for a lot of companies out there.
Good. Okay, one more question, and then we'll I have one particular question to ask Shraddha. Um, where do we stand? This is Yashwant's question. Where do we stand in terms of DNI compared to other countries globally?
Maybe I can just start, and Shraddha, you can add. So, at a country level, sometimes it's very difficult to make a comparison because DNI is something which is very cultural specific, and culture of the nation has a lot of impact on the way DNI would manifest in the organization because, ultimately organizations are part of the societies. So, I would like to look at it more at a problem that we need to solve at a spectrum level. So, at one end of the spectrum, you'll have organizations which are means just ensuring compliance with the state laws. That's it. That's where they stop. While on another end of the spectrum, we have organizations which would like to leverage DNI to foster innovation. They want to leverage DNI. They want to mirror their employee demography with customer demography to discover new market segments. So they are using DNI to solve for genuine business problems. And in fact, most of the organizations can be mapped on this spectrum. So I would rather take a spectrum view to answer this question. Shraddha, want to add something?
No, you've done it beautifully.
Great, good. Thanks, Brigu. Shraddha, one question I had. I think you've written this book, both of you, and I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can really make this, something as a powerful change. But what in your mind is how does success look like for you, with this book?
I'm a first time author. Krish Brigu is experienced. I'll be very honest. I never imagined of having to write a book. I'm an avid reader, and everybody who probably knows me knows that I love books, and my house is filled with them. I never imagined myself on the other side. But what stuck us was, we wanted to fuel that spark in people. And we met such passionate people on this one topic. Of course, personally, we were passionate because of our experiences, but we met incredible. It didn't matter. It could be a trainee in a college, it could be a professor, it could be a CXO, just not knowing how to deal with diversity and inclusion, trying really hard. So we started our effort with, again, same three things. We wanted to create better awareness, sensitivity, and competence on this subject matter. HR is about relationships, it's about the human connection. But it is also important that in the changing world, we redesign in a way that really respects each other. And there's so much of tremendous potential to learn from each other that if you're not, then we are not living for the world that we are built for. There's a saying that has always inspired me, Krish. Leave the world a place a bit better than how you found it.
Hmm.
And that goes a long way in saying this is our small step for the community out there. If it has sparked in you an interest, a want to do even one small additional thing, it could be from the 500 best practices, it could be from a personal behavior point of view, we will consider that a success, because that's all we wanted. We wanted you to make that change, and we will not drive it. It is not me, you, and Brigu who can drive and make India a more inclusive place. We will need a lot more hands, legs, and hearts to make that happen.
Yeah, well said. No, that's wonderful. So yeah, here again, I think one more time, I just want to kind of show this
Oh, yeah,
book out, and maybe all of you can do. I think it's a fantastic book. We'd like you all to kind of see, buy it, share it, and use it. Yeah. Uh, I think this is important for us as as NHRD. I think one of the things that we've been really keen on is to take diversity, to take this whole inclusion at a much greater level. There are some companies, if you look at the whole of corporate India, I would say yes, there are a few companies that are at the cutting edge of this. But there's lots of corporate India which are still way behind. Yeah, and I think this is where we've got to really help. And I think that's where NHRD wants to come and play a role. It's not the few multinationals or whatever it is, but it's the hundreds of other companies across the country. How do we really make that hundreds of SMEs? I think that's where the potential is. I think an NHRD alone can't do it. We would like to really enable that. So what we've started is this inclusion lab where anybody, any of you, any organization is interested in taking this journey, we can help you. You can do a kind of a self-assessment with us, and NHRD can help you. And we'll also have a few empaneled people who can drive, through both Brigu and Shraddha, who train them, and we can use them. So therefore, there are various ways we can help you. And we'd like you all to join in this movement of really making India a much more inclusive place. Yeah, I think this book is a great step to start. It gives us a lot of good ideas, a lot of actions to do, a lot of things that we always wondered what to do. So I'm really pleased that Shraddha and Brigu have really put this together. Thank you. I think that's it. Anything you want to say? Any final words, Shraddha and Brigu? I think as the authors, firstly, you guys have to have the last word.
No, thank you so much. A heartfelt thank you to Krish, to NHRD, Mitch, Guru, uh, Smita, Anu. You guys have been out there with us in this journey. I also want to thank out when we started the design of this framework, we started with 10 CHROs, really, really distinguished leaders who took time out of their calendar, not just once or twice, multiple times with us to give us feedback, review with us. And that showed us the passion and the love that we saw. I must admit, the model that it's built on is actually patented, and that idea didn't originate from me and Brigu. It was one of the senior leaders who said, "This is such cutting edge work. You guys should patent it." So I really want to say a heartfelt thank you to the immense leaders who've been very, very supportive. Of course, Crossword and Invincible in this journey. Like I said, first time author, really excited. Brigu and I are very happy. The book is available on Crossword. It's tagged on the chat as well. It's also available on Amazon. Please make that one attempt to read some part of it, get inspired, and make that one small change. And that's the thought I would leave everybody with. But a big thank you to our families, to our friends who've made us who we are. And without that experience, we wouldn't be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anything else, Shraddha? Any other thoughts?
No, we are very good. Again, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It is a special moment for us. We're very glad to have shared it with you. I think we've lost Brigu. There must be an electric power cut at his place. This is the reality of digital working. But I'm really glad that we got this time, that we had this opportunity. We look forward to hearing from you. There is a page that we've created on LinkedIn on Inclusion Lab, like Krish said. It's a joint mission of ours, and we really want to see the needle move for corporate India. So with that thought, I would leave you a big thank you once again to everybody joining us and helping us in this journey.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Shraddha and Brigu, for all your time. And to everybody else, Mitch and others, thank you all. It's been a pleasure hosting them this evening. And I'm really looking forward to see how we can make this a true movement. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Krish.
bye
Thanks a
bye.
lot. Bye.